I think in this COVID situation is something we are all under lockdown now, extended lockdown for Mumbai, and I think this is the right time. We are all cooking a lot of things, cleaning up our houses, and now I think it's time to get a little more productive. So it's time to upgrade our skills, be a little more productive about our time, as well as this is the time I feel we can actually spend to really look at our children, and maybe, if the children are having some kind of a learning problem or difficulty in their academics, we can critically analyze, look, discuss, and come to some conclusion and help them in the process. So it's very, very important to do that. Uh, and I think this talk is, I would want to divide into three parts. First part is we will talk a little about dyslexia and what are the early signs of dyslexia, what are the red flag signs. We'll discuss that initially. How do we manage such children? What can we do at home during this lockdown period? And the third would be what is the roadmap ahead. So this is how I'm going to navigate and take this entire session along. I would request questions which would be very helpful, and I would love to answer all of them so that the talk becomes effective for everyone. So let's start. Now, first thing is, what is dyslexia? Now, dyslexia is generally an umbrella term which is used for children having learning disabilities. Now, learning disability is a bigger term and more appropriate term, which in the common sense would mean inability to learn, inability to read, write, or do maths. So specific disability is an umbrella term, and there are three things which we put into that. One is dyslexia, which is the inability to read, learn new language, acquisition, comprehending language, and basically learning a language. So language skills are affected. Writing is the dysgraphia is where the child has a problem with basically the written expression, the writing skills. And the third part is dyscalculia, wherein the child has a problem with maths and related skills. Okay, so it is simple calculation to mathematical logic, logic operations, reasoning, and all of those. Now, the specific learning disability, this is what it is, and it is actually these three terms which are present. So a child could have either one of them, all three, any two. So different combinations could happen in a child. What exactly happens in children with dyslexia? We need to understand, and who is at risk, what happens. So this is all what I would be discussing in the first part. Now, what is the incidence? I mean, how often do we see dyslexia? I mean, initially when we spoke about and we started working with dyslexia, I work with the Learning Disability Clinic, KEM Hospital, Mumbai. We've been doing certification. It's a state recognized certification center for childhood disabilities. And when we started doing it long back, like 20 years back, people didn't believe in dyslexia. People didn't understand that. Of course, we've come a long way from there. But there is a problem in the children. How does that happen? Now, the problem, it's a developmental disability. So the child has a problem to start with. However, because it's related to learning, it manifests during the learning years of life. And that is the time we need to support these children. So that is first, which is very important. Most of these children essentially look normal. They usually would not have any other disability or any other problem areas. So they could have just in a few cases, but most of the children are normal to look at, so they don't have any physical disability. So again, it is very difficult for people to believe that what is the problem with these children. However, it is actually a problem with the language processing or processing of information within the brain, and that's the disability, that's the developmental problem these children have. So they are not able to process the information effectively, and hence they are not able to give the learn appropriately or give the proper output what is expected in the academic areas. So that is where the problem happens with these children. It is seen very commonly, as common as in 8 to 10% of school-going children. So that's the extent of problem that could happen with these children. Eventually what happens is, now these children, we have to understand, are the children who have a learning disability. So dyslexia, I mean, if we say learning disability, now learning disability, the children have a good mental capacity to learn. So the mental ability is there. So these are not the children who have low intelligence or low mental capacity to learn. See, their learning abilities are normal. So their potential is essentially good. However, they are not able to achieve their potential. So there is essentially a gap between their ability to learn and what they are able to learn. So this is where the actual problem lies. So these children, and I mean, we are able to figure out eventually some children may present very early, may have problems in learning very early, but some children may present late. In fact, since I sit at a certifying center and with our certificate children get concessions, we do children presenting very late in life. So sometimes we have people coming very late in life, even like in 12th standard, even during graduation, they read about it, they come to know that there is awareness, and that's when they come for certification. So it could go on to such a level also. So that is what is important for us to understand, that we can pick them up late also. However, let's start with what is the most common presentation. These children may present early in life. Usually they would come during the primary learning time, so up to 5th standard, 6th standard, or up to 10th standard. That's the time of presentation. These children will present essentially around the same time. Now, how do we pick them up early? So red flag signs, which is very, very important for us to understand, that what are the, how do we pick them up, or what are the problems the children will face early? So when we are talking of early intervention, we are talking of children to pick them as early as between the age group of 3 to 6 years of age. So all of y'all who is viewing this, they should understand that in case there is a problem of the child not able to learn, if we pick them up early, we are able to make a lot of difference in their learning patterns and learning styles, which are affected to start with, right? Now, before we move on to what is important, what are the problems these children face, let's understand that when a child goes to school, there are certain prerequisites for learning, which are very, very important. Now, when a child goes to school, maybe when the child is like 3 or 4 years of age, and the child is subjected or exposed to alphabets, letters, and all of that, first thing important is that the child should be able to speak clearly, and there should be no delay. The child should be able to express themselves well, which is important. The child should be able to express as well as even understand. So the child's receptive language, expressive language. The child should be able to express well, child should be able to understand instructions well, and the child should be able to speak clearly. So these are the, with regards to speech, this is very important. The child is able to do these basic things, because if the child is not able to do this, let me give an example of articulation problems. Now, since the child is not able to speak well, for example, what we say totla, the child is not speaking clearly. So, for example, for the word, la, he's saying ra, or alternatively. So the moment he says, there is a picture of a lion, he says Ryan, because he has a confusion, and so what happens is the child starts associating the L alphabet with the sound R, because he is calling it as Ryan instead of lion. So what happens, there is a lot of confusion which starts off with these children, right? And those confusions are very difficult. So it's a faulty letter word identification which can happen at that stage. And so we have to make sure that the child speaks well, there is no delay, and it's a clear speech before child goes to school. And in case this area is not clear, you need professional help. You need to take your child to a speech therapist and get that clear as soon as possible. That is the first prerequisite for formal learning. The second one is hearing. The child should be able to hear well, able to properly listen, properly respond. And in case it does not happen again, a formal evaluation of hearing has to be done. If the child is finding it difficult to follow instructions in school, not doing well, not paying attention, then it is very, very important that the child goes through a proper hearing evaluation. See, sometimes it could be just one side hearing which could be affected. एक साथ टाइप में नहीं सुनाई पड़ रहा है तो child will not progress very well in learning. So that is the second thing which we need to be very clear before the child goes to school. And the third part is vision. The child should be able to see well. In pediatric age group also, we see a lot of children with a lot of vision problems. Vision problems would mean the child could have far-sightedness, short-sightedness, squints could be there, color blindness could be there, congenital cataract could be present. So many problems could happen with the child, and the children will not come up and tell you this is the problem I'm facing. So it is very important that the parents get again that evaluated if the child is showing some difficulty in learning in the initial 3 years, that is 3 to 6 years of age, when the child is going to the nursery, junior KG and senior KG. So that is very, very important, which as a parent, as a teacher, as a professional, we need to definitely check these 3 things out, give them whatever support needed, get the child ready for learning. So these are the prerequisites for learning. So the child has to be ready for learning. Once that is taken care of, then the child needs to be observed. Now, initially, what would happen is the child, is exposed to the same concept over and over again. So they have a lot of time to learn. So they start with alphabets, letters, small concepts, small rhymes, learning tasks, counting tasks, and all of that. The children may have problem. I have had children with such severe problem wherein they are not able to, even till 1st standard, able to recognize alphabets. So it's been that kind of a problem. So there are a lot of problems which could happen with children, and we need to see. Now the children, if they're not able to identify letters, alphabets, so that means there is a severe problem which is presenting very early. Milder problems may present much later. So if it is a severe problem, we definitely need to start working on this child. Okay. Another thing would be the children may find it difficult to sequence. So especially in maths, you would see that they have a lot of difficulty saying the numbers order, saying the days of the week, saying the months of the year. So they find it very difficult. They find it very difficult to learn the concept of money, time, spatial relations. So all this is very difficult. So they're not able to put information in a proper sequence. So that is another thing which could happen. So these are the red flag signs which I'm seeing a question here. Somebody said that how to identify if a child is suffering from dyslexia. Now these are the early pointers which I'm saying. The child is finding it difficult even in the preschool time. However, when the child grows up a little more, what happens is the child is will show problems in reading, not able to read clearly. The child may show problems with spellings. Child has problems with vocabulary. Child has problems with learning concepts, maths related problem, doing simple sums, learning tables. Most of these children are otherwise bright and their oral performance is better. So they are able to say the things, but they are not able to write it. Sometimes they may say the spelling correct, but they are not able to write the spelling properly. So this is something which could happen. So since I saw that question, I thought I may just address that. So these are the early pointers. Now, the reason why we're talking of early pointers or identify them early is because you can really work on these children. I mean, with my personal experience, I've had a child in 1st standard, the child has severe dyslexia. And when I reassessed the child, when he was in 6th standard, he was much better. And by 9th standard, the child did not require any great support at the school level other than extra time. Even most of his spellings were also handled because the child went through intervention right from 1st standard. So there was such a great improvement. And believe me, the improvement when we start working with the children is not only in the spellings or academics. It's an overall confidence of the child that builds up and the children do much better. So with this, I think I I'm summing up the first part wherein the early identification part is kind of handled. Any questions? Anybody would? Any other questions? Do I see any more greetings here, which are, on the timeline? Any other questions which are there? Really, somebody's asking, how early can we identify children with the learning disability? Yes, you may suspect learning disability very early as 3 to 4 years. I do have references. I do have children coming so early. However, we can be sure only after the child has gone through proper learning process. See, if the child has not been subjected to proper learning, how do we know the child is not able to learn? Disability is an inability to do something. So if once we let the child go through proper educational, process, and the child is not able to learn, that's when we would say that the child has a learning issue, right? So usually, though we would suspect early, and even at 4 years, 5 years, and start early intervention, start working on the child, helping the child, providing all the support. What we do a definitive diagnosis only when once the child is in probably maybe second or third standard, 7, 8 years of age is when we can confidently say that the child has learning issues. Another common thing which you could see with the child with learning disability, another red flag could be the B and D confusion. We call mirror images. So the child writes, instead of B would write a D, will write 3 ulta. So all those those mirror images could be seen, which persist. So, some children, most of the children may start like that, but they autocorrect, within a span of maybe a month or so. But these people would not do that. These children would find it very difficult. Any other question? No. So I think from here I move on to the next part, that how do we manage a child who has academic problems or learning problems. So what we do is we have to first understand why child is not able to learn. Now there are two major categories that could happen. One is the child has a problem with academics per se. So it could be an academic, somebody is asked, can we send the child for assessment at the age of 6? Yes, we can do assessment at the age of 6. We can find out the strength and weakness of the child. And after that, we can start early intervention. We would definitely know where's the child heading to. We can do an assessment at the age of 6. Yes, we can. We may not be very sure and certified, but definitely do the assessment. Yeah. We were at the management. I started with the management part. What is important is we have to understand why a child is not learning. So it could be a learning disability, which there would be some pointers. There could also be some major behavioral issue which the child could probably have, and hence the child is not able to learn. Now, the commonest behavioral problem or another disability which we see associated with learning disability or dyslexia is ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We won't be discussing much in detail, but the child who is hyperactive and inattentive definitely may have a problem in learning. And if he has it along with learning disability, then the problem becomes double-fold, right? So it is even more difficult for these children to learn. So then we could have a child who has purely dyslexia or a learning problem. We could have a child who has dyslexia as well as a behavioral problem. We could have a child who has a behavioral or an ADHD problem alone and no dyslexia, or there could be a child who's simply not interested to study. So any of these things could happen, right? So so this is what we, as a parent, you need to understand that where is the problem. You could have a suspicion, you may not be able to diagnose per se everything, but you know what is the major problem, what is it couldn't coexist, as I told earlier. So you need to definitely figure out what it is. And before we move on, we have to understand that how does learning process happen with the children. Learning process is, it's like computer. You put in, there's an input, there's processing, there's output, right? Simple. I mean, computer is basically designed like how the brain functions, not the other ways. So now the input happens. Now in the children, they learn multisensorial. So they may touch, they may look at people, motor execution is learned by, observing people, hearing, vision. So since the children learn basically with the multisensorial ways, the teaching also is multisensorial in the younger age group. But as we move on, or as the children grow, the learning is mainly by two. Formal learning is mainly by vision and hearing. That's why I said that the prerequisite for learning is that all these input areas have to be 100% perfect or supported. Whatever, if the child has a myopia, needs the glasses. If the child has a hearing problem, needs hearing. So all that has to be kind of helped, okay, and taken care of. And so that has to be looked into. So input has to be perfect. Then comes the processing. So whatever information which goes to a brain is processed in different areas. So there could be there could be something which is analyzed, something which is associated with earlier information, and then some sense is made out of whatever information which is there. We do have a lot of sensory input. Everything is not retained. Quite a few which is unnecessary is just lost in the process. And then after making sense of whatever information the person gets, the person is able to store the information into memory, which can be recalled and retrieved at the late stage. And the output modality is either you're writing your answers or your replies, or you are saying it orally, or you are acting it out. So whatever way our memory response, we would be able to give the output. So that's how learning happens. Now the problem in learning disability is essentially in the processing part. So the children, anything could go wrong anywhere, but it's mainly the processing part, which is where it could be slow, it could be inappropriate, connections, if I have to simply put it. So a lot of ways it could go wrong. Now, if I just look at the example of reading. Now, how do we read? The first step is recognizing alphabets, right? Second step is associating the letter and the sound. So that phonology happens. So that is what happens in the preschool time. Then word building, vocabulary building, comprehension. Now, when we are reading a word, what is the process involved? So there's a process of decoding and there's a process of blending. So if I give an example of a word, boot, right? So when we are saying the word boot, so we are able to get the three sounds, b, u, t. So three sounds which are coming. We should be able to quickly look at the letters, get the sound, decode them, blend them together, and reproduce the word, right? That's how the reading process happens. So there are two main processes which are being done in the reading. Now, when the child has learning disability, he can have a problem in any of the areas. Now, the commonest thing which the parents come and tell me, one, my child is not interested in studies, hence is not learning at all, and I'm not able to teach my child properly. Second thing which I see is that the child likes to be read. मैं पढ़ती हूँ तो वो सुनता है, he wants to do, but he does not want to read. So now there could be a problem in any of the processes. When we analyze, we are able to specifically figure out where is the problem and how that problem could be worked upon with a special educator or with a therapist. So that is a separate thing altogether. However, as a parent, if your child is not wanting to read and not reading at all, there is no other way, but there's no shortcut to reading. There's no shortcut to learning. That is something which the parents and therapists and professionals have to understand. I mean, I come across parents telling me that I'm going to go to a center and in 6 months my dyslexia is going to be cured. This is just not possible. I'll tell you another thing why this is not possible. Because by the time the child comes to us, when they're doing a formal evaluation, the child may have a lot of difficulty in reading, writing, maths area. Now, as a parent, sometimes the gap could be just a year, 2 years gap in different areas of learning. Sometimes the gap can be as big as 4 or 5 years. Now, none of this can be actually taken care of in just maybe a few months or maybe even 1 year. So one, the management and the therapy goes on for long, right? And as a parent, what you are able to do is, there's a question which is how to identify a child suffering with dyslexia. I'm going to come to that after I finish this, right? So as a parent, there is no shortcut to reading. It's very important that as a parent, you stimulate, encourage your child to read. For a child who's having academic difficulty, his grade level academics or books may be difficult for him to read. The best way is to stimulate is encourage him to read the books of 1 or 2 grades lower. 2 grades lower, the child is comfortable, the child finds that he is able to read, he is able to understand, and hence the child is more likely to be encouraged or pushed to read. Another way to encourage the child to read is that you read along with the child. So you cannot tell the child, you sit, you read, and I'm just going and doing something else. It would not work. So you have to read along with the child. Like we talk about co-viewing, you have to read with the child. So this is very, very important that you encourage. Start with the lower thing, discuss the central idea. So you're also looking at the comprehension part a little bit, and then you move on. So it has to be a daily practice. There are no shortcuts, as I said earlier. I mean, learning is a process, and somebody who has a disability or difficulty learning, it's even more difficult, right? Before I move on to what are the techniques you can use, somebody's asking me, how do you identify any child suffering with dyslexia? As I said, dyslexia, it could be a problem in reading, writing, or maths. So the reading problem would come as spelling mistakes, inability to read fluently, poor vocabulary, skipping words while reading. So these could be problems which could happen in reading. Writing, the child could have mirror images, spelling mistakes, and a lot of other issues while writing, very bad handwriting. That could also happen. Sometimes the children may substitute words. If they find the spellings, they're not able to get the spelling, so they just quickly change the word, come to a simpler word, and just move on. That way they're smart. These are the children with normal intelligence. So that's something which we have to understand. We cannot really fool them. So they find their own coping mechanisms and strategies by avoiding the task or making the task a little easier. So that's something which could happen. And maths, these children would have problem with learning tables, sequencing numbers, doing basic addition, subtraction, word problems. So all of these areas could be affected. Fine. I think I've answered the gentleman who had put the question. So now I move on back to the management. Again, before I move on, I'm going to keep this 100 times. There's no shortcut to learning. There's no shortcut reading or other problems. What as a parent you can do is identify the problem, read with them daily. It has to be fun time reading. I mean, somehow I feel all of us have lost the fun of reading. It's a lot of watching, viewing, but not too much of reading. So reading has to introduce as a fun activity, as something which is pleasurable. That's something which is very important to understand. Color coding is something which you can use by, when the child has a lot of difficulty in spelling, so you could use color coding. I gave the example of boot. So since there are 3 sounds, b, u, t, so b could be a different color, o can be a different color, double o's can be a different color, and t could be a different color. So the child knows that he has to concentrate on 3 sounds instead of 4 sounds. So so that's how you could work with these children. So color coding could help us. Rewriting could help us. Chunking the words into smaller words could help us. That's again something could help us. Now, writing, what is very important and which we need to understand is mainly the grip. See, normally it has to be a tripod grip, but you would see children using literally this kind of a grip, holding the pen like this, pencil like this, or holding it like this, putting a lot of pressure while writing, and and the angle with which they are holding the pencil to the paper. So all that needs to be looked into. So once if you are able to look into all these areas, then you are able to kind of understand that yes, this could be a problem. And now as a parent, this is all you could do. There are a lot of I'm not able to get this question correct. You would like to know more about the assessment. I'm coming to this. Yeah. Okay. Now these children need a formal assessment. As I said, that there is a limit. We can, as a parent, you can suspect learning disability. You could help them during this lockdown period, but after the lockdown period gets over, you need to get them formally assessed. Now, the first step of assessment is doing an IQ. As I mentioned earlier, these children are with an average intelligence, so they have the capacity to learn. However, they are not able to learn because of the problem in the processing. So these children, first step, what we do is doing an IQ. Before doing an IQ, we don't know if the intelligence is average, below average, or above average. But most of the children with learning disability would have average or above average IQ. That's the first step in assessment. Second step is doing a detailed educational assessment, wherein we check all areas of reading, writing, maths. These are the three core areas which are checked, wherein we are checking any therapist, any person you go in for assessment is going to check on reading areas. So you get a reading age, you get a spelling age, you do about listening comprehension, oral comprehension, maths, basic application, vocabulary, phonics, memory. So all these areas have to be detailed tested. Once you are able to test these children, assess these children, this is all about academics. If the child obviously has a behavioral issue, we need to check them for ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Sometimes the children may be very anxious, so we need to run some anxiety checklist or something like that. So again, a little more assessment. For smaller children, for their pen grip, for their fine motor skills, and all of that, we may require to do a little more assessment and involve a occupational therapist also. If the child has a problem with speech, then a speech therapist will be involved. So it's a detailed, comprehensive assessment which needs to be done for the child. After that, we are able to figure out what is the problem, what is the diagnosis, how much is the problem, what are the areas of strength and weakness, and from where do we start the intervention. That is very important, because the child has a problem without an assessment. For me, assessment is not for diagnosis. For me, the assessment is for intervention. How do I start working on this child? If I have a good assessment in place, it makes the life much better for everyone to understand. Second, you have clear-cut areas from where to start. So the work starts immediately on the child. So that's why the assessment is very, very important, which we can do. So, and this is what I would talk about, the management bit. Okay. My son is, somebody's written, my son is 10 years old and he has seen cartoons and TV and mobile, not interested in studies at all. What do we do? Okay. Now, what works best with these children? Now, I'm telling you, it's very difficult for children these days because they are far more distracted. I mean, I feel bad for our children because there's just too many distractions for them. What can be done is you need to do something like is scheduling, wherein there has to be certain time put in for all the activities, which would include, dedicated screen time as well. But there has to be some study time. So what would work with your child would be that everybody could sit down and set up some kind of a screen time, and everybody has to follow. Now it cannot be, and we parents need to model here. If we don't model, it doesn't work. So if you are able to model with your own time limits, following certain regulations, it works wonderfully. A lot of scheduling is required. It works. They're not interested in reading, we need to read together. That's a very important thing. Yeah. I think I'm done with the second part, which is another 20 minutes. I'm a special educator, hence keen to know about assessments. Yeah. Wonderful. So assessment, if I have to just say that again, assessment is okay. So assessment process is, as I said earlier, doing an IQ, doing a detailed educational assessment, an occupational therapist assessment, a speech assessment if required, a behavioral assessment if required, and then a complete report. And that's what I would sit and discuss with the parent then. Somebody asked me how to improve ability to learn any nutritional food. See, if the child has anything in particular, anything which may affect learning, could be micronutrients. Maybe if the child has obvious anemia, pallor, the child may have concentration attention difficulties. I mean, as far as your child is growing well and having no pallor, no signs of any nutritional deficiencies, we don't recommend anything much. But in case any of these things are there, then the child will feel lethargic. Another point which is very important and I've seen missed out is hypothyroidism. So some children may have low thyroid and need to be assessed. So that is another thing where I feel there's clinical evidence of this. Say, would do a thyroid test and start the child if required on thyroxine. Okay, there's a question: what children are interested in watching cartoons all the time and not interested in books? What do we do? One thing is very, very important, as I mentioned earlier. I've already answered that, but I would say that again, is we also have to stop watching and set a reading time together. Parents are not reading, hence children are not reading. That's something which is very important. So let them watch cartoons, but have a reading time wherein the whole family sits and reads something together. So that works. Yeah. What time assessment? Proper assessment can come. You could do somewhere when the child is, say, 5 years onwards. We could do a formal assessment. Certification process we need to do after 8 years of age, when the child is roughly in 3rd, 4th standard. Stammering does not come under dyslexia. That's a separate problem. However, if the stammering is secondary and could be related to anxiety, it could be solved and it need to be evaluated along with dyslexia. So some children may have a severe anxiety because they are not able to learn. Hence, they may have something like secondary stammering, and that needs to be done. My child is hyperactive and doesn't sit. Can he have dyslexia? They can coexist. That I mentioned already. But he could, I think he can have dyslexia. I mean, in case he has other features like spelling mistakes along with being hyperactive, oral work is better, multiple difficulty learning basic vocabulary, words, poor handwriting. So if they have all those other features, then yes, the child could have both of them together. DHA and omega-3 syrup is helpful to some extent. I mean, they're not harmful. I mean, you could give it to children. Not too much of evidence about it though. But yes, you can give it to children. It is helpful to some extent, but not clinically, not too much of. I wanted to know, since now that assessment hospital has been claimed as COVID. Didn't get it. Ma'am, I wanted to know that since now assessment hospital has been claimed as COVID-19 hospital, what about the assessment? You should avoid. If the child is, been certified as a COVID-19 hospital, you have to avoid going right now. Yes. No, because the risks are too many. And children are not interested in books. Yes. Okay. I feel children parents also need consultation on parenting, as most of the people put a burden, pressure on their children since the beginning. Oh, yeah. So this is somebody's asked an interesting question about competitive world and the parents pushing the child. I would say I have a very, very important message to give here to the parents is, see, you have to understand your child. Nobody knows your child better than yourself. Second, you need to get rid of your own peer pressures. You cannot expect your child to do certain things because somebody else's child is doing the same thing. So one, comparison is really bad. Even comparison among siblings is something which may impact their relationship forever. So this is something which I would not recommend at all. Will dyslexia go away? No, dyslexia does not go away. It's a developmental disability. It manifests itself when the learning child is learning. So most of the children do much better as they move on, but it does not go away. And as the children, they learn their own coping strategies. They have lesser problems as they grow up, but it would stay. Yeah. Now move on to the third part of my talk, wherein we're talking about the educational support and provisions. Now, the commonest question which comes to me is, which nobody has asked till now, is that what would happen to these children? Do they need to go to a special school, or do they stay in a regular school? So my clear-cut message here is that the mainstreaming is the key. These children essentially stay in the regular schools. Any of the boards, it could be SSC, ICSE, CBSE, IB, any board, but these children have to study in regular mainstream school. That is very important. I would say more than 95% of the children, we are able to manage them very, very well, in a mainstream school. So there is no problem. A lot of support and provisions are given. Most of the, schools in a metro would have a counselor or a special needs department if your school is really advanced with regards to special needs support. So it is very important that the child goes to the regular school. The children are given a lot of support in the school these days. A lot of support is provided. All the boards everywhere, all of the boards, let it be, central boards or state boards, all of them are providing support to these children, which are more or less generalized. However, they would be a little different state-wise, but more or less all the children get extra time to write their papers, which should be given in the home examination or home evaluation or school evaluations also, other than the board. These children can avail the facility of a reader or a writer. They get concession for spelling mistakes, so the marks for spelling mistakes are not deducted. For the children with dyscalculia, they get extra time to write the paper. They get a calculator. For Maharashtra State Board, they can take lower maths, 7th grade maths for the 10th standard. They could drop maths altogether for both ICSE and CBSE boards. So they get a lot of support so that they stay in the mainstream. That's the whole idea, that these children should be in the regular school. Very few exceptions wherein there is a lot of learning gap, or the child has some other problems. We may see children ADHD with learning disability. We may have children autism with learning disability. We may have a lot of other combinations, other problems associated, or severe exam anxiety along with learning disability. So these kind of, if there are too many other problems, then the children may find it difficult to mainstream, and they may have to go to a open school curriculum or something like that. But I would say more than 95% of the children should be in regular school. So that's very, very important. Any questions do I see on the way? Not too many. And so all the boards are more or less equally good for these children. And with the revised Peoples with Disability Act 2016, a lot more support has been provided to these children. So they do very well. Now, before I end, because I don't see too many people asking questions now, what is important is that we have to understand these children, though may they have certain weaknesses, but they have a lot of strength. So as a parent, as a teacher, and as a professional, we need to make the parents aware. Now, see, as a professional, I'm a pediatrician, I'm a developmental pediatrician. So all the doctors, if they are present in this, watching this, we have to prepare the parents to anticipate problems in learning for the high-risk population. So there would be some children who are the high-risk population, who are premature children, who've had any kind of, a medical problem, the children who have undergone chemotherapy, children who have undergone radiation, children who have a lot of other, any kind of physical disability, children with different syndromes. So where they're children with epilepsy, on medication, intractable epilepsy. So a lot of these children, we as professionals have to tell the parents to anticipate and report these problems as soon as possible. So that's our responsibility as a professionals. So we guide them in the right way, we guide them properly, and we send them for proper, assessments and even testing of vision, hearing, all of that early, and all of those, and good control of the primary condition with medication and all of that. So that's what, as a professional, we need to do. As a parent, though, you have first step is accepting the problem, that my child has a problem. I mean, that's okay. People have so many difficulties in life, so this is just one of them. So one, acceptance, which is very, very important. Second, acceptance, and kind of let the child also become aware of the problem as they grow up. So it cannot be, there has to be a balance between acceptance and empowerment. So you have to make the child accept the problem, that yes, you have a little difficulty in this area, hence we need to put in more effort in this area. However, you pick up the strength, and kind of push that a little bit. See, children could be good with interpersonal skills, children could be good in sports, children could be good in music, children could be good in so many other things. So that needs to be pushed up, so that there's a balance. Now, most of the times what I see, either the parents find it difficult to accept, or the parents find it very difficult to balance, and they may unnecessarily be very protective towards the child, right? I'll give you one example. I had this child who had severe learning problems, and the parents just found it so difficult, so any kind of bad behavior was condoned. So ultimately the child had difficulty in school more because of the behavioral problem rather than learning problem. So you need to strike a balance between the disability the child has, accepting it, supporting it, providing whatever intervention required as early as possible. And on the second side, what is important is understanding the strength and pushing that up. So you kind of balancing the whole situation. So that's your role as a parent. For the teachers who are probably viewing this Facebook live program, they need to understand that as a teacher, you need to support them in school. So you have to understand that these children undergo a lot of bullying at school as well. And again, as a teacher, you need to understand that they are different with different needs, special needs, and so that needs to be taken care of. Any more questions? Do I see that? Yes. Will dyslexia go away? No, I don't think so. Dyslexia is a disability I mentioned earlier also. That's a disability that stays. Good screening tool for assessment or screening. We have a screening tool. It's a 10-point questionnaire, which is there. And I could share it with you, that I would share it with you. Yeah. Another thing is Vandana. Hi, Vandana. So there's some provisions for slow learner in middle school. Yes, we have provisions of extra time for these children. That is all the provisions which we have, which could be given in case these children could go in for, if they're not able to cope up, they could go with the subject change, and they could go to the open school. Yeah, I have a very interesting ear reading with audiobooks. That does help. Yes, that helps with the dyslexia. Good question. What is the earliest age to suspect dyslexia? The earliest age to suspect dyslexia can be as early as 3 to 4 years. I mean, I've seen children presenting at 4 to 5 years. And red flag signs I already discussed in detail. However, the children finding difficult to recognize alphabets, sequencing, rhyming, understanding basic concepts, color concepts, shapes concepts, time, money, spelling mistakes, oral work better, poor handwriting, maths problem, all of that. What is the cost for the management of dyslexia? Now, that's a very big question. You can't say about the cost, because the management is not just a small thing. Management can go on for 3 to 4 years for a child. So the child needs to go in for therapy, for support for maybe 3 to 4 years. So it's a little difficult to say that, and it would vary from place to place. So something in Mumbai would be probably expensive, but good, effective. You go to smaller towns, I mean, you may not get very good support system. How to identify children whether he's suffering from ADHD? because usually in early school ability to learn is different. Okay. See, the children with ADHD, if it's a classical ADHD, may present very early as 3 to 4 years, even earlier now. ADHD per se has inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. These are the three areas which would be present. Okay. And there are certain criteria. However, these children may find it very difficult to sit at one place and get the concept right. Early schooling days also, we are able, very severe ADHD, the parents get them to us without fail, because the child is just not sitting or able to sit even for a few minutes, sometimes as early, less than 1 minute also. The child is all over the place, could be disruptive, and the parents do seek help very early in ADHD. Okay. Counselor with primary assessment be taken before sending. You could do a primary, yes, Vaidehi, you could do a primary assessment, and mainly related to the checklist. But you must send us for certification only when they are in third, fourth standard. You could do an early assessment. You could start intervention since you're school counselor. You could start with the counseling the parents. Your role is very, very important. And you could start with some special education, some teaching techniques, some study skills could be taught to parents. And you could start early, but assessment has to be done when the child is around 8 years of age. Who is authorized for LD certification? You need to have a government recognized certifying center for LD certification. That's very important. The professional has to have an RCI certification, which is from the Rehabilitation Council of India. So those two things are very, very important, and duly qualified people should undertake. I do understand in practice we see this very common. We see a lot of people doing, it's like multi-therapy. Everybody is trying to do everything, but that's not true, and that's not effective, and that's not fair to the child. That's what. How teacher helpful in diagnosis? There are a lot of tools. We have a 10 question checklist which I can share with you. That 10 question checklist could help you do the assessment. How you are able to get remedial teachers? In Mumbai, we have a lot of remedial teachers. We have, in fact, a lot of courses which are run, for special educators. So we are able to get a lot of remedial teachers. I do agree that beyond the metros, it is very difficult to get remedial teachers. However, there are a lot of programs which are being run wherein people can do this kind of short-term courses. And even with this IGNOU also runs a couple of courses for special educator. I mean, that is something which could be done. Is slow learner and dyslexia the same? No, they are not. Thank you for asking this question. I completely missed it. Now, slow learner are the children who have lower IQ. So the IQ between 70 to 90 are the children who are slow learner category. The children with dyslexia have the IQ above 90. So that's the normal IQ range. So the children who are in the borderline intelligence are diagnosed as slow learner. So they are two different terms, and they are not the same. What if the child is in 10th standard and need the assessment certificate to avail the? Yes, at when the child is in 10th standard, you need to, but you need to go early. Very late, nobody will accept it. At the beginning of, you should in fact be trying for assessment in the 9th standard itself. However, in the beginning of the 10th standard also, it could be done. Open schooling system, I don't, sir. Dr. Shiv Prakashan sir here. I don't advise open schooling system for LD children. They are essentially for slow learner. However, in very few cases, we may recommend it for very severe LD cases, but very few. Mainly, the LD children have to be in mainstream in school. But if they remain in mainstream, they're not able to perform. They are able to perform. They do beautifully. Most of my LD children get above 80% in their ICSE and CBSE exams, more than 80%. So there's no question of them not. You have to provide them if proper support, give them a lot of concessions which are needed, and then they are able to do very well. Can we label a child dyslexic before therapy as they tend to improve? You could, because it does not go away. They improve a lot with proper guidance and remedial. However, you you can't take away the diagnosis. So you have to understand the diagnosis essentially stays the same. So that's very, very important. But that depends at what age are we doing it. See, it's important. And it's not about labeling somehow. I would not really want to label a child. I would like to help the child. So I look at it, if I give a diagnosis, I'm helping the child. And it's not like a physical disability. I mean, you may not even want to use the certificate later. It's your choice ultimately. If your child doesn't require it, you may not use the certificate. So you're not really labeling. Does brain gym help in dyslexia? Not really. Extra time given in 10th standard for slow learners? Yes, extra time is given for slow learners in 10th standard also. Okay, yeah. So I'm kind of done with a lot of this. Now, as teachers, any key points somebody's asked me? I think that's the last question I would probably take in. And there's one question. Okay. So teachers, see, it's very important. See, the role of teachers comes as a teacher, you could provide the support system which is required. You could be probably the first person to suspect learning disability, because you are the one who's seeing the child is having spelling mistakes. You are the one who's seeing the child is having mirror images. You are the one, in spite of explaining twice, the child is not able to get the concept. And you as a teacher could go back to the previous year's teacher and ask, look, this child is not learning this concept. Did you face the same problem? Right? So you could be the first one who suspects the problem, who has to communicate either with the counselor if present in your school or to the parent, making sure that the child is not made to feel differently or inferior or embarrassed in any manner. Same for the parents. If so, as a teacher, your role is very, very critical. So first thing is, you suspect, you help with the diagnosis, and once the diagnosis is done, you as a teacher, now that you're aware of the concessions which are present, you could help with the certification process. There are a lot of centers for certification in different cities. Usually it's the government certification which is required. You could help with the certification, and you could help the child learn in a different way. What you can do in the classroom is make sure that these children sit right in front. You can repeat the instructions for them. You can give a little more extra attention for them. You could inculcate buddy system in your classroom, wherein a smarter child sits with the thing with this child and helps this child learn better. So as a teacher, you can make a hell lot of difference for these children. What is the future for such children? Yes, that's one question which I'm so used to answering. And believe me, whatever I've spoken in 1 hour, I end up talking most of it to the parents when they come to me for consultation, because everybody wants to know what will happen to my child. Believe me, most of these children do very well, because it's a learning problem. It will manifest during the learning years of the child. Then the children, if they're provided good support, they do wonderful. If they're also growing themselves, they're also coping up, they're also developing their own mechanisms to either avoid the task or do better, most of these children would do graduation. Most of these children are successful in life. You would see even Tom Hanks and Abhishek Bachchan and even Einstein, it seems, had dyslexia. So success, most of them are successful. So I don't see anything very gloomy. However, the road is a little bumpy. That is what I see. Yeah. I think it's more than an hour, and wonderful interaction. I hope this talk would benefit few people, and I'm able to solve all your questions. Thanks a lot for the patient hearing, and let's all the best for all the children and the parents and the teachers and the professionals. Thank you.